I'm Catie Faryl. I'm an artist, not a scientist, and to make you feel more comfortable, I painted this box to look like a screen so you wouldn't miss the PowerPoint. I'm a lover of nature, really, and also the co-founder of the Chamber of Commons. And we use this it's a kind of a conceptual movement. It's really kind of antithetical to a nonprofit or LLC. It's really just a heartfelt idea that we're sharing to say, let's champion the commons, all that we share, the natural world. Let's end the resource exploitation that we see and get a little bit more back into balance where we're not taking out as much and replacing what we do take. So our little proverb we share is this: the law declares him a thief who from the commons steals the goose. Yet the greater thief the law lets loose, who steals the commons from the goose. And this is sort of at the core of the bigger problem, is the excessive resource extraction that we see. I also serve with Pachamama Alliance and our local project Drawdown. Drawdown is 100 solutions to reverse climate change, not mitigate, actually sequester carbon, lots of regenerative ag involved in that, and 100 solutions that we're working on, many of them locally. We have 7 sectors in Drawdown. They're women and girls, energy, transportation, buildings and cities, materials, and land use, and food, of course. And Angelina and Kim are part of our big food group project, which seems to have a lot of momentum. Materials is getting a lot more momentum. So watch for our classes. Our intros are all free on a donation basis. And today, because you've heard a lot about recycle, reuse, reduce, right? We all know some things about that. But I'm going to focus on more personal observations and introduce what I call my 5-year plan to reduce climate crisis. For 30 years, we've been kind of preached at the 50 ways that we can save the planet, and we suffer for some of that shame and blame of being told it's our fault when actually most people cannot. It's a system that we're bound to, and we can't feel very strongly that we're making those changes. For instance, how many people can buy a Tesla? How many people can buy an electric car yet? We're in this 5-year bridge period, in my opinion, where we can do a lot. We've kind of had those platitude suggestions like change your light bulbs while we watched PG&E burn down huge parts of California, right? It's like, wow, I did my thing. What's happening out there with these institutions? So we see our minuscule results in the face of sometimes seemingly immovable forces. And maybe we were just going about it wrong for now. So instead of nibbling around the edges of this reality, I think we need to take a huge bite out of the problem via our consumer powers. And it's my assertion that consumers can reduce waste and energy by 30% over the next 5 years. This is necessary because we're in this bridge time. If we can back off our consumption for a while and allow some of these ancient and new solutions to come on board, we'll be in better shape. And also, mainly, to send a powerful message to some of the powers that be, the fossil fuel industry, the chemical industry, big ag, and pharmaceutical companies, of what we really aren't going to buy. In fact, a lot of us here in the Valley worked on the GMO-free movement. And one of the most impactful things that we did, in addition to the initiative and the vote and defending the lawsuit, was to say, hey, GMO, we don't buy it. And there's nothing that works better, really, than the law of supply and demand, because when you can reduce the profit margin of the companies that are not coming along board with all of these amazing processes, they're going to wake up and say, wow, look at our bottom line, something's happening here, and start moving quicker to embrace the solution. So my plan is to play a little financial hardball. I say to melt the chains of corporate greed and reverse climate change. Let's see, where can I say this? I'll jump to say that I'm going to talk, instead of recycle, reuse, reduce, I want to talk about refuse, renew, reform, rebel, and reclaim. So refuse, and I'll start getting my things out here. We got, okay, what are we teaching here, okay? You see these things, they get right up on you, you know? And I think that to boycott the oil industry just simply by buying less gas. So park it and walk away for a couple days, right? Nothing works more effectively than the market of supply and demand. Vote with your wallet at every turn. And here we have, is that it? The power of the purse. This could be the new slogan for the women's movement, okay? Really. I mean, if we can show them that we're not going to buy in as much to some of the things that we've done in the past, I think it would be a big difference. For instance, you know, you can buy local GMO foods and actually learn how to grow your own foods. We have a program at the Bellevue Grange. We're teaching gardening and that kind of thing. Buy ugly produce and regional products. Go naked with your packaging, right? And soaps, shampoos, a lot of things are coming in bar form now. You don't really need all the tubes, and you know, we've all had them, right? The tubes, the lotions, all this stuff. It's a lot. The other piece of that, and you've heard a little bit about this today, but I don't know that it's been rightfully explained. Go on a tear, I call it. Here it is. Go on a tear, okay, T-A-R-E. Tear means, it's actually a word, if you Google it, it actually refers to weights and measures that's been in place for a long time. So it's basically the weight of what is transporting that product. But you can take your bottle to the co-op or to the shopping cart and ask the clerk before you start around there getting your stuff to weigh these things and then refill them with, you know, the bulk items. I think that's one place we really need to expand. We need to have bulk laundry detergents, and I'm working on getting companies to come in like Seventh Generation. They have just as much packaging as any of the traditional Tide or whatever. We need to really impress on industries what the public wants and needs in the next 5 years. So there's your tear system, you can do that. Let's see, I'm kind of losing my place here. Let's go on to remove. Remove is a huge category for me. Remove the fear that we can't make a difference, or that by consuming less, we're going to bring the economy to a screeching halt. Stop thinking that you and fellow citizens have brought on the sorry state of the world and the climate crisis, and remove the social stigmas that bind us to retail therapy. I have a lot of artwork about retail therapy. And if you want to see some of my artwork about climate and solutions, it's over at the gallery by the CVA. And there's a lot of information with that. So remove those stigmas that bind us, and you know, the desire to impress others with our possessions and success. No more gimcrack. That's this bag. Okay. And I know a lot of people, I presented this last night, a lot of people didn't understand what was gimcrack. Okay, or some people call it gym crack. It's just stuff like this, okay? It's trashy plastic stuff, and it's not tchotchkes, okay? A lot of little tchotchkes, no, tchotchkes is like your precious snow globe thing. You know, that's cool, that's cool. I have a lot of stuff like that. But I'm talking about things that absolutely, you know, we don't need, and that just become, and there's even 3D printers now, which is supposed to be part of the solution, but is actually kind of reconfiguring some polymer plastics with more stuff that eventually is going to get trashed. So that's gimcrack, and not buying that kind of stuff and replace it with other more meaningful, you know, things that might be more, I don't know.
Bring you joy.
Bring you joy. There you go. What's the name of the gal who does it?
I don't know.
There's a, what is it?
Marie Kondo.
Yeah, so things that bring you joy.
Heart joy.
Heart joy, absolutely. I really do follow her stuff, it's very interesting. So take a break from buying these unnecessary bottles and only replace major items like stove, refrigerators, and cars with renewable energy counterparts when they break. Okay, all this idea, and then if we could forego remodeling for the next 5 years and keep all that stuff. You know, people pull out a perfectly good floor, people pull out a perfectly good carpet. Here's another important, really important connection with fossil fuel, and that component is understand that pesticides are derivatives of oil. Remove Roundup and other sprays from your arsenal. Yes, these are weapons of mass destruction sold to you by naming nature as the enemy. Are we really so pathetic and wimpify that we must strap on a canister of glyphosate, go out to our yard, you know, to kill everything, the evil weeds, right? And everything that's in the soil. The insects, the important pieces in the soil. No, we really have to stop that idea. And you see that if you have a TV and you watch it, you'll see those ads on TV that are just shockingly ridiculous the way they're selling these really deadly chemicals. And there's huge movements all over the valley with Pollinator Project, Bee Cities, Bellevue Grange, to actually ban those chemicals, dicamba, glyphosate, lots of really toxic things. There's really no need for them except that it is a derivative of oil. It funds the oil industry. So let's see. I think we've been sold kind of a damaged bill of goods really over 50 years. I say better living through chemistry? No. Okay, we got to get rid of that idea. It's a lie. And adopt the motto, better living through biology. Natural biology, Mother Nature has done it best, and I think we can't beat that. We try to take that out of the hands of what is already a creation so beautiful and so actually compellingly circular, you know, and we think we can intervene and do it better, do it faster, do it this way, but it's really coming from the profit motive of people above our, you know, above where we are, you know, and the idea of consuming that stuff. Also, I think remove the perfectionism and the kind of misguided aesthetics of our culture. Everything doesn't need to be neat and sanitized in order to be useful and good. Okay, perfect lawns. I say that's the Dorian Gray of our neighborhoods. Okay, what lurks beneath? Duh, big time. So we don't need it. I feel like we're suffering from the 100-year, what I call the 100-year fuel oil party. And oh my gosh, what a hangover we have. We have for 100 years, well 100 years ago, everything was tied to sun hours. Remember in his film he showed the, what do you call it, biofuel,
the biofuel vehicles?
Yeah, biofuel vehicles. You know, in the past, up until about 100 years ago, with the advent of the motor that uses fossil fuels, instead of some of our early cars used alcohol fuels, they were high-grade farm fuels. You drive your Model T up to a farm, that's where you bought what was running your engine. And then powers that be, the Rockefellers and others, took over the oil fields in the Middle East, brought on the suffrage movement in order to ban alcohol. That was the bottom line. It wasn't about teetotaling and women saying, I don't want my man to drink some whiskey. It was really a disguised effort to make all alcohol fuels illegal so they could corner the fossil fuel market. We're trying to go back with permaculture models to that kind of system where farm fuels, actually there's a company called Bloom Distillation, B-L-U-M-E. It is probably the most genius answer, and they are selling their stills, you know, in a permaculture model all over developing countries. But here in America, we have this grid problem. Okay, how do we bypass the grid? You can have your individual solar system. You can have individual systems for almost everything now, and they're doing it in places, in remote villages, where they don't have to build a grid. anymore to transport the light and all the, the heat. All those things are separately done village by village in these permaculture models. So there is that. But back to the 100-year fuel oil party, we can cut our energy use in a lot of ways. For one thing, you can get a solar clothes dryer. And especially around here in the summer, there is no reason to use your dryer, your electric dryer. Look at your bill when you start doing this, and you will see probably a 30 to 40% reduction, whether it's gas or electric. So also, unplug appliances, there's something called phantom power. I didn't know about that, but I'm always fascinated with the kind of edge. Phantom power is when you leave an appliance plugged in, and it's still pulling from the electrical grid and using up unnecessary power. So unplug those things, and also use elbow grease. Okay, does everybody know what elbow grease used to be? Okay, it's like doing it yourself without the help of a machine or a chemical to do the work. So, we had 100 years ago in America, everything was cleaned with simple soap, water, vinegar, baking soda, and lemons. That was it. And actually, a lot of our solutions are reverting to a time, not even when I was born in 1950. We saved everything coming out of the war and the Depression. It wasn't excessive like this. We've just been kind of gradually brought into this system by everything that's available, and we're starting to see our power in refusing it, our power in removing it. So I encourage you there. I don't know, many people might not know that 9% of what ends up in the landfill is fabric and fibers. Carpets and clothing and upholstery, all kinds of things like that. And these are polyester products now, mainly. You can't hardly find anything that's not when you go shopping. And these polymer fabrics break down into tiny fragments that kill a lot of creatures in the ocean. So they're filaments, and they're never going away. That's a problem. We need to reduce the glut of planned obsolescence and cheap items in the system. So passing through the system now is a very limited system for these things. That's why on the front end of food and everything else in 5 years, it doesn't mean we have to sacrifice that much. It's just that we have to become very aware consumers to make choices. And I think, for me, to make the choices that will tell the fossil fuel industries, they're stopping buying our product. Maybe we need to rethink, how much fracking and, all these things that we're doing. I mean, they started fracking and were allowed to frack because it was supposed to be a backup plan for the U.S. in case the war happened or we wouldn't have any fossil fuel. But actually, it's become an export business, and our country is the #1 oil producer in the world right now because of all the fracking. But look at, we're the ones carrying the devastation of our environments. So that's got to stop. Recycling is the last stop in the materials chain. And there's, and this bridge solutions of reducing, our consumption on items we really don't need, or to send a message. Can really help to do this temporary bridge while better solutions are being brought on board. New inventions like compostable and water-soluble plastics and cellulose printers, alcohol fuels, all these things are in the works. And there's a list of innovations, all these things on our website at Southern Oregon Pachamama.org or Southern Oregon Drawdown.org. I have a lot more to go, but I'll try to do it quickly. Reform, I'm talking about reform in the sense of if governments won't help us do what we know needs to be done, we need to legislate for the removal of what's blocking us from doing it ourselves. So that's an important tool. reform what blocks the changes and prohibits common sense solutions, like citywide food waste composting, like creative reuse centers, like gray water systems. These laws need to be examined in relationship to climate change. Renew, I say, let's renew our can-do American spirit by showing corporate America what we want and what we won't buy. Let's boycott the products we know are killing us and the planet. A massive renewal of tree planting and food forest is a practical way to clean the air. And we can commit for 5 years to the old slogan in the 60s, live simply so others may simply live. Because I almost start crying when I think about, and when I do a meditation, sometimes I hear children crying all over the world. Okay, when you compare the life of a child, you know, to this, or, you know, some of these things and say, wow, you know, people are suffering. We don't see it as much as we do, and we're also shown in a lot of times in our TV shows, National Geographic, they're panning to the beautiful part of nature. They're still showing us that, but they're not showing everything that's surrounding that. So we need to be cognizant of how what we do also has a global impact. I think we need to bring back that slogan that we used in the 60s when a lot of people my age kind of took on the industrial military complex. Still with us to this day, and we need to somehow get a handle on that. But also I think we don't need to feel bad about what's the past, because in that 100-year fuel oil party, we built a ton of infrastructure and lots of good systems that can be retrofitted based on some of the work of Paul Hawken and Drawdown and some of the things you're seeing today. There's ways like Paul's prison thing. Wow, who thought, you know? Those things are possible in part because of what we did on the back of fossil fuel. So we just have to keep moving forward to see, oh, we did that, that's great, now what? It's kind of like, let's put the icing on the cake of what we have and start. I think it's impressive to see all the progress that's being made. I call it reclaim and rebel. Rebel is defined as rising in opposition to an established government or ruler. And the weapons we can use are the wallet, the purse, power of the purse, restraint, advocacy, sharing, and common sense to reduce consumption by 30%. By reclaiming and educating about the commons and supporting the rights of nature, respecting the elements, and holding our pale blue planet just sacred. Maybe we can return to some other values and away from the excesses that bind us right now to a frivolous and dangerous economic and political system. So these are the tools of a gentle rebellion, and you know, if we boycott and act as informed consumers and change some of our habits that have kind of just been created in a time of luxury and look at it a little more carefully, I think we can reclaim the hearts and minds and conscious living to end climate chaos and address some of our social, economic, and environmental justices. So, to recap, I don't know if I showed you all this, but we'll just say, park it and walk away. Oh, also, we need to demand rapid transit. We need to demand that, and we need to restore passenger rail. You know, the Grange fought the railroads back 100 years ago because of their power, and it's still true today. We have tried to restore passenger rail from the Railroad Museum. John Stromberg, our mayor, went to bat for that. The railroads just would rather take more lucrative freight on those lines. But in Ashland, they finished the rails to Ashland in like 1888. This in March. In July, for the 4th of July, the circus train came, 120 cars filled with freight, animals, and passengers to Ashland to stage the circus. If they can do that in 1880 on the technologies they had, you know right now for sure. So that's a huge thing, because we're trying to get these rapid transit, but we can't even get train service to certain parts of Oregon. It's a problem. I'll finish up so we have, no more gimcrack, have to put that away. Better living through biology, and build a better model. Go on a tear. Ugly is beautiful, and go naked with your packaging. And let's reclaim the commons, champion the commons, and show a little more respect for Mother Earth. And I just want to close by offering, because I haven't really heard much about this in any of these conferences this week, 7 dangers to human values. Wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, business without ethics, religion without sacrifice, politics without principle, and science without humanity. So thank you for listening to my kooky show.